Tuia mai rā tātou, I roto I tēnei pō, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou. Kia ora everybody, it's Che Wilson here from Te Pai Pai Waho, connecting to you tonight through a number of platforms to share a bit of tupuna wisdom and some insights into this kaupapa around how do we make ourselves more ready, being ready, and risk analysis or risk assessment. But before I do that, I'll open us up and then we'll go from there. Nō reira, kia kara kia tātou. Mai amaranga wakarangona te rangi atu nei, mai amaranga wakarangona te papaya takoto ake nei. Mai I are are wakatupu anuku, mai I are are wakatupu arangi, eu e ana ki te pau o te pai pai wao, e tū nei. Tenei te pō, tū mai te pō. Turuturo I te waka maua kia tīna, ui e, taiki e. Taiki e kia tātou, tēnā tātou, I roto I tēnei pō. As I said, Che Wilson here from Te Pai Pai Waho, connecting to you through a range of platforms tonight. And I'm going to give a bit of a kōrero about risk assessment from a te ao Māori point of view, and more importantly, being ready, and how do we make ourselves ready. But before I do that, just a general overview. The last few sessions now, I've changed tact and I've decided to discuss different things that happen throughout the week. And even though I'm still in lockdown here in the Waikato, still have to navigate different take and change is continually happening, and change can put us off. Change can also cause fights, cause arguments. And what I know is, if we think about the tangihanga muscle encourages us to always be ready. Kia matara tātou. And being ready, hopefully that helps us to do things differently and take us to a better place. And so, I'm going to talk about risk assessment. Hoi anō, e tangi ana ki o tātou mate. Me te oro te ngākau, Auntie Sylvia, ko koe tēnā, ko oki mai I tā wāi, I ai te reiria ki te wākainga. And again, that's an example of change. My auntie passed away last month and finally got her home. I'm stuck here in lockdown, but good to see the photos of those that were there to do what we needed to do once she got home. Again, an example of change though. Okay, so I checked up on the dictionary just before we started to look at what the word is for risk. And in particular, risk assessment. And one of the words that came up was tūraru, which is a direct translation of a risk as in a problem. And I think one of the challenges is that the Western paradigm that we work in, and where we talk about risk assessment, it's always looking at the negative, which I think is contradictory to a tirohanga Māori. And I'm not saying that we didn't look at things in a negative light, because we can definitely do that. But what I do know is that tikanga traditionally would encourage us to look at the world where the glass is half full rather than half empty. And therefore, what that encourages us to always be ready. And I think of the pā, the fortified pā, the fortified village, pātū wata wata, and the common phrase in a whakaarara pā, and a call to attention is kia tū, kia oho, kia matara. And tū in that context is to be ready. Oho in that context is to be woke to everything around you, and matara is to be on the ready. So active and ready, be woke and ready, and be on the ready to adapt to whatever situation is put before us. But I think when we talk about change and some of the challenges we've been through over the last 150 years, 200 years, is that we tend to often take a frame from a Western paradigm. And a classic example of this is tangihanga, where traditionally you never planned a tangihanga, tūtimitiri. You never planned a tangihanga because he karanga mate, you're calling on ill fate. I don't buy that. I am mindful of some of the things that I say, but I'm into planning. And I base that on the pātu watawata because our tupuna were experts at planning. And I don't want to get into a big debate about what's happened in COVID and that. But if you look at the Māori response last year, that was a Māori response. This year, sometimes it's been Māori, sometimes it's been an amalgamation of what the government's doing. And I'm not criticising the government, but what I'm doing is challenging us. How do we use our tangihanga muscle so that we're not waiting for someone else to tell us, but we're doing things because we are at oho, and at a matara state all of the time. And I got challenged, no, I got questioned recently in a kaupapa that I was running. When do you wear out that tangihanga muscle? And my response is you have to tag in and out to have a rest. So you must always tag in and tag out. However, the tangihanga muscle should be ready all of the time as well. And where I'm going with this is the pātu watawata encourages us to be ready, to be planned, and our tupuna were amazing planners. They were amazing strategists. And you see it in their whakatauki, and you see it in the hints of what they've left. In addition to that, all of the different karakia and waiata tell us that they knew how to plan and how to be ready, and that also things could change. And so that takes me to being ready. And one example of that is tangihanga. Do you plan your tangihanga or don't you plan? I'm open to planning some things. I'm not open to a will which stipulates and tells people you must do this, you must do that. But I am open and support ensuring that some of the key things are done. Where are you going to go? If there's a fight, let the fight happen, because that's e mea waka nui. But be prepared. Make sure that you've got some things ready. Make sure you have money ready, because tangihanga are expensive. And if you're going to bury in a city or at a Pākehā cemetery, that's going to cost at least $800 to $1,500 just to get a hole, whereas you could get it for free at home. But planning for those things is really important. And the idea of karangamate is more about not stipulating from woe to go, but really having some plan and then leaving the rest over, because the saying is, while you're alive, you're your own rangatira. But once you die, those that sit on your pai and those that will be making the decisions are the rangatira. One thing I learnt at Stanford University in 2013 was this idea of a pre-mortem, because you have post-mortems, and post-mortems for a business or for a kaupapa is often a waste of time because it's I should have. The idea of a pre-mortem, and I don't like the term, but I like the idea. The pre-mortem is to look at all of the different scenarios of what if this happened, what if that happened, so that we're ready for any issues. And I think a pre-mortem is a state of matara, where you're not just awake, but you're at the ready to adapt to a situation. And so a pre-mortem, I think, is another example that our tupuna did in the Pātū Watawata, based on the preparation. And if you look at some of the models that are out there, the gardens that they had inside the pā, outside the pā, the different mechanisms that they had to ensure that they had access to water, that they had escape routes. Because who knows, you could lose. And ko te ora te mea nui. And so you want to make sure that you can get out or get key people out as a small group, hold firm. And so maintaining that state of matara is being ready, because the teachings, the prophetic movement that I've been raised in, we've always been told you've got to do your bit and leave the wairua to do their bit. But don't expect the wairua to do 100% for you, because that's just lazy. You've got to do your 50 and they'll meet you halfway. And so I think that state of matara isn't about a state of stress like it could be perceived if we were to follow the whole risk assessment framework. But instead, it's here's your tikanga, here's the resources, we know where they are, mahi a ngā mahi, and if anything changes, we just pivot, we make it happen, we make it work. And one of the challenges we have is we want to have a hui for bloody everything, whereas sometimes you just got to trust those that are making the decision, and even if you might disagree with the decision, if you weren't there, takina tō wā. Because it's really easy for people to go, oh, they weren't at that. They broke the tikanga. Well, where were you upholding the tikanga? And if you weren't there, and work might be an issue or something else like that, but the fact is you're not there, so you have to trust and allow others to be able to just do. So I think if we think about things right now, we're in the transition from rākau nui to tangaroa, so we're in the kore phases, and I'd like to leave you with this idea of just to contemplate about how do we maintain the state of matara as families so that we are ready, and how do we maintain the state of matara as groupings, where tikanga guides us rather than someone else with their own tune. And don't get me wrong, use the tools if they are helpful, which is why I like pre-mortem. So I use that tool. I've been doing a bit of work at the moment where I've been using the whole pre-mortem exercise to keep me matara as we go forward. So ka te ake, I think that's enough. E me I kauatu ana ki koutou, stay well and kia matara. And I think to close us off, oh, you're a crack up, Misty. To close us off, be safe, be well, and look after ourselves. No reira, kia wakaere ake ki te tā uu nui, orangi nui e tūnei, puritia mai rā te tāuro te aora kia tīna kia uena, kia toka te manawa ora, puritia mai rā te manawa nui, puritia mai rā te ngākau nui. Puritia kia marama, kia wātea. Turuturu o uti waka maua kia tīna, tīna, uie. Taiki e. Kia ora tātou. Pō mārire.